Firm belief in the reliability, truth, or ability of someone or something. That is a definition of trust, and that is the topic on today's live broadcast. So, morning everyone. Hi folks. Hope everybody is well. Hope everybody's sitting comfortably. And my topic today, my name is Mahmood. I am going to be doing a broadcast today on, if I get there, on trust in your business. You might be thinking, why talk about trust? Is it that important? Is it that big a deal? And I would absolutely say 100%. If you don't have trust in your business relationships, if we don't have trust in our everyday lives here, then everything goes very, very badly wrong. If you're catching up on replay, by all means, put in hashtag replay, add some comments. I know you're out there. I can say hello. Any questions or thoughts that you've got to share, I'd love to hear what they are as we go through today's broadcast here. Now, in terms of just a couple of hellos here before we crack on with the show, just Marina, good morning to you, and Laura, good morning to you as well. So, as I said, the topic today is about trust, and you might be thinking, that's a big deal. What is it about? I've given you effectively a beginning working definition. I think it's a good foundation to show from. Just to remind myself what we're talking about, I'm just going to do that little magic ticker tape on the bottom of the screen. Now, in our everyday lives, in terms of what we do, there are certain things that we trust by intuition, by nature. So we all know that the sun is going to rise, the sun is going to set. Doesn't mean it always will forever, but that's something that we trust in. In terms of friends and family, we trust our friends and family to be there for us, to support us. If you're driving along here, you trust that the traffic light system is going to work. The consequences if they don't is going to be quite bad. What I actually want to bring a focus on, though, is in terms of trust in your business, and that trust manifests itself in a number of different arenas there. You've got trust in terms of the physical equipment that you might be using. My conversation is more about trust in terms of people that you develop relationships with, whether they're suppliers, whether they're customers, whether they're your own team. I'm also going to share 5 tips, because I love mnemonics here, I've summarized in a nice little mnemonic, which I'm going to refer to later on as DEMAS, D-E-M-A-S, and that's going to tell us that framework here. I hope you're going to find it a really valuable framework to actually adopt in your business practices. You can apply it, and I would say pretty much into most situations. Before we get into the meat of this here, I think a couple of things I think that's got to be really important to emphasize. When we form a new business relationship with somebody, and we talk about this idea of trust, don't run away with the idea that says if we don't trust somebody, it means we think they're necessarily dishonest. We actually think there's something, very dodgy about them, something that we want to avoid. Trusting, if we go back to our original working definition, is that belief in their ability to deliver, perhaps, the truth of what they're saying. So it's not always a negative connotation, though it sounds very much like that. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, so Mahmood, why is trust such a big deal? Most people that I do business with, effectively, I trust them implicitly. Well, like all things, the need for me when I talk about something is either because I think it's relevant to somebody's business, it's either something I've experienced myself over 25 plus years of running a business, and it's something that I think helps all of us in our business life. So for me, trust is really something. I would say also it's a really critical thing to keep your business going and to power your business go forward there as well. The Zig Ziglar phraseology that everybody has come across, or certainly most people, is that if people like you, they'll listen to you. If they trust you, they'll do business with you. So it's not only just about doing business with customers, but we've got lots of ways that trust comes into that. And I think it's really critical not only to identify why it's important, but more practically, how do we actually develop a framework of trust? What do we need to do? And I think this applies whether you're a massive oak tree of a business or whether you're a solopreneur. Absolutely, trust is a key element. Now, in terms of tips, I suppose this is really what to focus on this presentation here. I'm going to summarize that into DEMAS here. And DEMAS is a framework. You can call it 5 key tips or 5 processes, take your pick, that I think is really quite valuable in terms of when you're developing relationships with perhaps new business partners, perhaps in developing new supply chains, in terms of when customers view you, they are looking to trust you before they actually purchase from you. That because you merely promote yourself and you're going to get people to buy straight away, it does not really happen. It happens in the movies, it happens on probably some advertising platform, but people have actually got to not only know you, but they're going to be able to trust you. So as you look at it from the customer's perspective, with this framework is going to be really valuable. Obviously, as we go through this this presentation, this broadcast, take your pick what you prefer. If you've got comments to share, any personal experiences or things to ask of me, by all means, please chuck them into the comments box and we will address those and answer those as we go through. So here's my framework as such for developing trust, knowing how to execute trust, deliver trust, recognize it. And again, it summarizes by this Diligence here. And what I find is, unfortunately, and I've been in that same situation, I've had my fingers burnt where, I thought the trust was there, people have let you down. Everyone in business by that, at some point, something will go wrong. Okay, not necessarily deliberately, not necessarily because somebody's bad-minded, but something will break down there. And we want to obviously avoid that, not just because it's going to lose you money, but it's going to dent your confidence. It's going to affect your ability to work with other people. And if you want to grow and move your business here, you cannot work in a vacuum. You need to work with other people. So what do we talk about when we talk about Dana? So by the power of magic, let's do the first one. Something that I find probably is sadly lacking is, so let's have a think about this. We've got a situation that we might want to develop a new product, a new service. We may see that collaboration is absolutely key, and we are either looking for a potential partner on this particular venture. We might be looking for a new supplier. We're looking for new freelancers to help us, employing staff here. And what I tend to find, unfortunately, is very few people do what I call due diligence. And what do I mean by due diligence? So let me, I suppose, draw a couple of parallels with you. If I was looking in the idea of working with somebody more closely on something, I wouldn't, intuition is a fantastic thing here, but intuition alone is a very dangerous thing here, because your mind, your brain can convince you of something positive existing, but the reality might be slightly different here. So we meet somebody for the first time, they're full of confidence, they're full of beans, they talk a good fight, as I might say here, and we think, oh my God, they actually know what they're doing here, and we might then be encouraged, or we might actually take that relationship a step further without actually necessarily checking that individual out. Now, I'm not talking about CSI Miami, I'm not talking about getting a private detective involved, but it's actually doing some basic checks on that individual, on that company, before you take that conversation any further. So can you do, for example, check out, for example, their company, what they've done? Is there any evidence if they're a marketeer, for example? Is there any evidence of what they've done previously? Can you check their own website out, their own social media platform? If I looked at due diligence in the context of a customer, a company offering credit facilities, I might say, yeah, okay, I've got to operate, I've got to give somebody credit facilities, but what do you do to check the reliability of that individual company? Is it newly formed, or is it worthwhile taking references? Can you check out anything about the director's background? So there are things that we can do. Ronald Reagan encapsulates that quite nicely, and he says, trust, but verify. So check things out, get some evidence, and again, don't rely purely on how that individual presents themselves. It's important, the character is certainly important here, but do your homework, do your background, check out existing suppliers, check out something, but get some evidence to back up before you go any further. So does the evidence support your instinct? If it contradicts it, then I would say evidence is obviously going to be stronger than gut instinct. Now, I'm not talking about a formulaic approach here, by the way. There'll always be situations where I can present a framework. I can say, well, follow this DAMAS framework when you look at building up trust. But, sometimes your commercial judgment may want to override that. I'm going to deal with that later on in this presentation here. But as a general rule of thumb, have something that's more, shall we say, straightforward there. So that's due diligence. Check it out, get some evidence to back up. So if somebody says they're a superb expert at something, where's the evidence that backs that up? Don't take them at face value. You're looking out for things like reviews, recommendations, their own websites, conversations that you might want to have with people that they've dealt with. But you want to be moving from that pure stranger to, let me, do some due diligence here. Companies that sell their businesses, what they would always do is do a due diligence check on what they're buying into, not just the accounts information, but something about the company. And there's a lot of information in the public domain that can help you do that. So that's one thing, go through that sifting process, go through that, get some evidence, and then we can move on to the next stage. And I will give you a couple of personal examples from my own business life here where I've actually followed this and where I also made mistakes by actually not following what I'm presenting to you today, which is probably quite usual. Now, once you've gone past that first stage here, and again, let me use that credit control example. So we've got a customer who wants to buy from us. We ideally don't want to give them any credit facilities. So we've done our due diligence, we've checked them out, we've done some credit referencing, we've checked out what they are. And then what we're thinking about is perhaps extending that credit line a bit further. Very similar, where we have a relationship with somebody, I wouldn't necessarily go in and say, let's go straight away and sign up on the dotted line. We then, once we get a bit more familiar with that individual, once we get a bit more familiar with that company, we're then going to be moving on to extend our investment in that individual relationship. We're going to invest more in that trust building exercise, but it's slowly. If we think about it in terms of friendship circles, if you meet somebody for the first time, if you then suddenly say at the end of that meeting, that conversation, oh, they're my best friend, then that's quite, I was going to say delusional, that's quite probably naive here. We take time to understand what somebody's about, to understand their character, how they work. And then what we find is as time goes up, our trust of that individual extends, it deepens, and therefore the friendship deepens as well. It's the same philosophy to some extent in a business relationship that you have. And remember, we're talking about this business relationship, not just with customers, how they might perceive us, but with our suppliers, people that we might work with. And I'm a big fan of collaboration, by the way, the right sort of collaboration. But again, trust is that vital thing here. And it's not just a nice to have, by the way. You can get your fingers burnt very badly, if you don't go through some of these steps. We've had all of the steps there as well. So we talk about due diligence, and we talk about then, as we get to know that contracting party, that potential supplier, that potential business partner, the customer, as they get to know us, what happens is that trust can then be further extended. But again, it comes back to evidence. It comes back to the reality of what they're doing. And if we go back to that original notion about that belief in the truth, the reliability and ability here, that's what we're actually looking in terms of. So we're talking about diligence and we're talking about extending trust. I'm just going to take a sharp breath here. I'm going to grab some water and I'm going to say hello to the wonderful people who have joined me on this wonderful Saturday morning. Now, I'm going to embarrass her probably. I'm going to say, first of all, good morning to my business partner. Good morning, Joe. I believe she's speaking to us live from a salon having her roots done. I hope I didn't give anything too personal away there, Joe. Now, in terms of the reason I mentioned Joe and potentially embarrassing her, you'll see Joe on future broadcasts, but some time ago, when we first met as such in virtual space, we eventually formed a business partnership. And that came through by us actually establishing lines of trust. And we actually, both of it, not necessarily through a checklist here, both went through this process in terms of establishing that trust before we actually decided to form a business partnership. I've had business partnerships, by the way, historically, where it's been a really, shall we say, expensive mistake. And unfortunately, in the world of business, everybody will get let down at some point. I know it might sound a bit cynical, it might sound a bit jaded, but that's my reality, that's my experience, not just for myself, but for the hundreds of thousands of clients that I've been engaged with over the last 25 years plus. Laura, again, good morning to you. Hope you're well. Just Marina, good morning to you. So where are we? Yeah, and I'm just going to stop there for a moment here. So I'm just going to share a comment, which is a fantastic comment from Joe. I'm not saying that because she's my partner. Absolutely. So this idea of shared values. Now, Shared values here in the context of the relationship that you're doing here. So it's your business outlook, it's your business philosophy, the way you do things. Now, it doesn't mean you have to replicate what somebody is doing. It doesn't mean that you have to, share the same sense of humor, though it helps. It doesn't mean that you have to do things exactly the right way. There will be differences. It doesn't mean you have to like, the same people, but it's actually a shared values here that leads to that strong binding of trust here. So I trust Joe 100%, and that's based because we have we have a same outlook in business, how we see people, how we see business growth. We might have, different ways of doing this going forward, but absolutely, that's a really strong part of that business DNA. So we talk about, first of all, don't rely just purely what goes on between your ears. So if you say, oh, actually, you sound like a nice guy, you sound like a nice woman, I think you're very funny, all that sort of stuff, therefore I'm going to do business with you, that is a big warning light here that says pause, take a step back, and just gather some evidence here. Once you form that relationship, whether it's a supplier, and that supplier is going to be a key part of your business processes. If they let you down, it will have a knock-on effect in terms of what you deliver to your customer. If they don't actually do what you think they're capable of doing, that's going to let you down. That trust is breached. There could be good reasons for that, but again, as far as we can, let's get some, something confirmed, some evidence to back it up. We're talking about extending the trust. So again, like any form of personal business relationship that goes on, the more that we can prove to somebody that we're capable of doing something, just like with a customer. Customers, if we deliver what we say we're going to deliver, if we have those high service values that we're maintaining, if we're making product and we deliver that, in the way they want them on time, if we effectively do as we are committed to do what we promise, customers become stronger, they form a closer bond with us. That forms effectively a barrier to any other competitors coming in. Not only does it affect the pricing, but it means you retain more customers. And historically, it's about 3 times more expensive to retain new customers as it is retaining new stuff to get new staff. So therefore, that extension of trust comes as that relationship strengthens. Now we're going to DE, so we've got an M here. And again, sadly, and I can understand fully why, this next dimension of trust and trust building, how you develop that trust, is unfortunately lacking in a lot more businesses that would be good. Monitoring. Now let's assume we've gone through this situation, and I'm going to draw those parallels with credit control, is we've done our diligence on that potential partnership, that potential supplier, the customer's done that on us, they've checked us out, they've checked our reviews, they come on board. As they trust us more, as they think, yeah, you can deliver what you want, they buy from us even more. They recommend us. As we work with a supplier, that supplier delivers what they said they will do on time and at the price that we've agreed, etc. Then we might do more business with that individual. We might be less inclined to look elsewhere. The third dimension, though, in terms of once you get past traditionally the honeymoon period of that new relationship, is monitoring, keeping an eye on things. Now, I'll use the example of a business working relationship, and I'll extend it to other facets as well. Now, I've just got a question from Laura there. Laura, that's a great question there. I'm just going to pause what I'm saying for a few seconds. Now, I'm just going to flag up Laura's question if she is happy with that. There's a great question there. So what about when you and your business partner disagree about a key issue? Now, Laura, if you're okay with me, I'm going to deal with that on the next comment here. But I think fundamentally, if there's 2 elements, I'm going to flag up one of them now. So that's a fantastic question. So if you've got a situation where you've done your due diligence, you're working with a business partner, you've done something at that preparatory conversation where you identify things perhaps that, when you've got a disagreement, what's the protocol? Is there a way of actually doing that? If it's a fundamental breach of that, that relationships break down dramatically, then there are things that you can do in what I call the action point. So I think there's 2 elements here. This is a bit probably like the stable door story, but when you actually deal with a potential new business partner, then effectively one part of that initial conversation is to think about what do we do if we don't actually agree? if there are disagreements, how can we resolve them? Do we put our case forward? Is it evidence-based? Other things, does it link back to our central ethos, our mission? So when we both said this is the way the business is going to go forward, does it resonate with that? If the answer is yes, okay, there's a stronger argument for doing it. If it doesn't and it's a departure, then obviously that means that partner's disagreement here can become messy if they don't have the capacity to resolve that and to actually deal with that. In terms of formality, what else you can do? If that's okay, Laura, I'm going to deal with that in a few moments. So my initial thoughts are the initial conversations that you have with any potential partner. Part of that is about that shared values, that shared goals. Secondly, if you do have a disagreement that somebody says we should go this way and not that way, make it evidence-based. Keep it as a very, I wouldn't say informal, but keep it in the context of what your business is about. So these new marketing methods, perhaps, that Laura's flagged on, do they actually support the advancement of what you both agreed as missions and goals? Do they get to where you wanted them to? If they don't, and it's a radical departure, and there's going to be an extra element of risk there, then that's going to have to be a conversation that you're going to have to try and resolve. How you do that, I'll share a couple of tips with you in a moment. So hopefully that gives you a good initial answer, Laura. I'm happy just to pick that up again in a few minutes. So monitoring. So it's about keeping an eye on things. Now, when I say keep an eye on things, remember, I'm not saying you must mistrust people that you do business with, but with the best will in the world, when we embark on a business relationship with someone, when we have a new supplier relationship, a customer relationship, life gets in the way. And it may be that what we wanted out of that partnership, that relationship, doesn't quite come to fruition. Well, you've got to keep an eye on it. You've got to think, okay, what are my expectations? What are my milestones? What are my measures here? And if it's not materializing, and I think this is really leading in now to the next point here, is try not to personalize something. So I know it's very weird. We're talking about business. We're talking about individuals who get involved in business. Of course, they're people. But here's the key thing. When you're in a business, running your own business, and you're dealing with other people here, what you've got to try and do, unfortunately, you have to be a little bit resilient. You have to be a little bit tough between the ears, and you have to be a believer in what you stand for. Because if that supplier doesn't deliver what you wanted them to, so you've got to have an idea of what you want. So is it delivery times? Is it price? Is it quality? When a customer buys from you, what are they wanting? Well, what is it they value most in your business? You've got to, your customer will be monitoring that, and they'll be monitoring it either in their mind. Formal monitoring is a better thing. You've got the evidence there. When you build a business relationship, you've got to keep an eye on things as they go through. So it could be typically that you have regular catch-ups once a month, once a week, whatever that time frame is, depending on the extent of the involvement, where you're saying, okay, these are our outcomes, this is what you were going to do, this is what I was going to do, is it happening? And you mustn't get involved in what I call personalities there. So when you go into that environment of a business, it's saying, okay, yes, we're going to do this amicably, yes, we're going to do it convincingly, but this is not a personal friendship we're talking about. This is a business which is important for both of us. So keep an eye on it, have some expectations, have your idea of measures. And now here's the critical things. When things go wobbly, and unfortunately over the 25 plus years, and I've seen it with families, I've seen it with brothers and sisters, I've seen it with husbands and wife, is when people form relationships in the early stages, they get really quite excited. They think, great, you've got this skill set, I've got this skill set, let's get it together, let's do some wonderful things, and let's take it forward. That happens, it may end up, when there's no money on the table, that one party does a lot, you both might do things equally. Ideally, you obviously have a framework where you say who's going to be doing what. Now, when the business relationship starts making money, if the conversations haven't been had in the start point, this is where unfortunately I find that money messes things up if you've not talked about that at the beginning. And when money starts to be made, and this is based on actual real experience to myself, and I've seen it in other business relationships as well, is when people start making money out of that relationship here, if you haven't defined, you haven't got clarity about how things are going to shape up, what tends to happen is one party might be thinking, actually, I'm doing all the hard work, however you define hard work. I'm putting all the effort in. I'm investing all the time and the energy. I'm doing all the probably non-sexy stuff. And you're actually the front of the organization and you're getting an equal share. Now, it's not because that obviously that's going to make things a bit messy. So for me, when you go back, I suppose to get a few steps back, if you're thinking of forming new partnerships and relationships, I would actually say I would definitely have something documented in writing. And if somebody is aware at first of signing up something to say, oh, don't you trust me, I'm not going to sign anything, for me, that's a big warning sign. It says walk away, because if you in your business here cannot say, here's a couple of sheets, here's a document to say, this is what you're going to do, this is what I'm going to do, this is where we come together, this is how we see the business going forward, we've got that shared vision, this is how we divide the money up, this is how it goes in. So have that money conversation right at the start. You're in business to make money, okay? Certainly is one of your main goals. It's not your only goal, but it's a main goal. Otherwise, you've just got a part-time hobby on your hands. So that money conversation needs to be had sooner, and I would suggest at the beginning, rather than some way into the business relationship there as well. Now, here's the next thing, and this really picks up from Laura's point about what do you do if you have a disagreement. So let me just give you a second or two. Let's bring this up. It's about action. Now, again, it's a dramatic word, action. When you think about action, you think, oh my God, this means gung-ho. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is you've got to have a certain mindset in business that when things don't go quite well, when you have disagreements with your business partner, the couple of things you must never do is never impersonate an ostrich. Do not hide under your duvet. Do not think, oh, I can't have this conversation with you because I don't want to upset you. You know, you're really important and critical in my business. Therefore, if I say anything that's actually troubling me, you know, something adverse might happen. I can understand that perfectly. I've had that previously when, you know, with staff. I mean, I've got a fantastic team that work with me, help me in my business. I've had my fingers burnt on interesting staff, shall we say, over 25 years. I've had my fingers burnt with bad relationships, bad business decisions that I've made. And I think people who've had bad experiences, as long as you learn from them and use them for positive outcomes, you know, making those mistakes, even though we'd love to avoid them, is a natural part of the business ether, if you want, part of the business DNA. But ultimately, what I've found to my cost is you've got to be confident, you've got to be unafraid of having what you might consider to be confrontational conversations. Now, when I say confrontational, you don't go in there saying, I want a battle, but you mustn't be wary and afraid of having conversations with people, especially if they get particularly tricky. And you do normally find there's a benefit for that. Number one is somebody may be acting in a particular way because you've not actually mentioned it before. So it's like those little bad behaviors, those little niggles of, you know, somebody might be late in your office, you say nothing at all, it builds up, and eventually it builds up to something disproportionate. So you've got to have an inner confidence of having a conversation that you might be perceiving as difficult. If you can't have a difficult conversation with somebody, then you need to work on that, because it's going to be a critical thing in your business life. And if you can't have those difficult conversations, what happens is you'll be taken advantage of. Human beings, by the way, we're really strange animals here, and subconsciously, more people than not, if you're particularly very nice, which I think is a great attribute, if you're particularly very, you know, very outgoing and you love helping people, which I think is really brilliant, some people perceive that as a weakness. Some people perceive that as niceness being a sign of weakness. It's not. So trying to get that self-confidence to have that conversation. What's your thought process as to why you're doing this, and what does that do to advance what we've agreed at the beginning for our business objectives? Listen to it with an open mind. If you think, okay, that makes sense, I hadn't quite seen that, take it on board, reflect and modify it. If you think that's complete pants, you know, it has no bearing, it's going to divert us away, the risk is too great, it's not what we've agreed, it's a shiny new bauble, then you've got to have that conversation that says we've got to steer away from that. So you've got to be able to act, have those conversations, do something. Now, the nuclear option, if the relationship is really breaking down with a potential partner, the customer's relationship is breaking down, then you've got to act. Delay means that it could be very costly for you in the long run. So Laura, hopefully that gave you some, yeah, I'm just going to flag up Laura's reply. Yeah, absolutely critical, Laura, you're quite right there. It's evidence. So when we make business decisions, yes, instinct and gut is brilliant. I think that's really great. But I would say, even myself after 25 plus years, I would not rely purely on my instinct and gut to make a crucial business decision there as well. I'd want something to back up, to support it. We all tend to make decisions emotionally, by the way, and logic backs them up here, but evidence is going to be really key. Now, what's the last thing? And again, I think, again, it sounds a very unsexy thing to talk about, but I'm going to talk about the last S that makes up the thing, systems. Now, let me share a couple of examples here for you that might actually illustrate that point. So if we take the area of, let's say, credit control, getting paid on time. Getting paid on time is really vital for your business to continue and to prosper. So we do work for clients, we do work and deliver goods to customers. We want to get paid. Who doesn't? Okay, if you don't get paid, then your business is not going to succeed. As simple as that. So what might happen is we've got a system that says we do the work, we invoice you, and we give you, let's say, 21 days before you pay the bill. What typically happens is that person, 21 days goes by, and we just let it drift. We don't do anything. We might communicate with the customer and say, okay, any issues, any problems, we discuss that with them. And the customer says, oh, actually, I haven't got any money, so I'm not going to pay you, and I'm going to pay you when I feel like it. Now, it may be, and again, I've suffered this quite recently in the last couple of years, is that you think, okay, my systems, my credit control says, if you can't pay your bills on time, yes, there's always going to be an element of discretion, then unfortunately I can't continue working for you because I've got bills to pay. You can say it very nicely, I'm not talking about saying it very aggressively, but unfortunately our policy is if the bills aren't paid, then we find it very difficult to continue because we've got other clients knocking on our door, whatever words you want to use here. So therefore we have to stop working for you until that can be rectified. And that's just a general system. It may be that you have a policy that says, if you can't pay your bills on time and you haven't talked to us or whatever, then we may look at not working for you. Now, client comes back and they says, look, it's really been tough for me, blah, 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 I'll pay you when I can. And you might feel naturally as a human being, okay, I'll do what I can to cut you some slack, and you take time. You don't chase it up, they keep promising, that promises never comes to fruition. And before you know it, there's been several weeks or months have gone by, something happens with that customer's business, it all goes belly up and you've lost a lot of money. Now, I, again, in the last couple of years, suffered about in the tune of 5 figures because I ignored my credit control department. They feel just about forgiven me now, but I actually overrode the systems that I had. I ignored my systems, I ignored that due diligence, I ignored that for whatever reason, and I succumbed to that, and unfortunately, the business lost out financially, quite significantly. Now, okay, we're still here, we survived that, but it's a salutary lesson there. If you've got a procedure, if you've got a system, the system is there independent of you as an individual to help your business become productive, to help your business run. Ignore them at your peril. Systems, if they're good systems, are there for a reason, and I would strongly urge you, to not slavishly follow them, but they're actually there for a reason. If you've got a system, follow it, don't ignore it. Okay, everybody, so that's pretty much, let's just summarize that. So trust is absolutely critical. If you don't have trust in your business, then your business will not proceed. We have no choice in the matter, by the way. If your business wants to prosper, even if your business just wants to tick over, you have to trust people that you're dealing with. So do your suppliers deliver what you do? Does your staff team do the work that they are paid to do, that you want them to do? We're going to do all that, checking out the quality of the staff that we have. Are they competent? Don't rely just on saying, oh, you look nice, come on board. Trust permeates throughout our whole business network there as well. It's absolutely critical. Again, not just with customers to you, but with suppliers and potential partners. DMAS is a good system to look at that framework. So it's about diligence. It's about investing more, trusting the potential even more. It's about monitoring, keeping an eye on the situation. And it's about effectively action if something doesn't go quite right. Critically for me, you've really got to be comfortable or get to that comfortable stage of actually talking, having that conversation. Now, somebody that I know, who I'm just going to introduce here at the moment, absolutely 100%. So Nadine, good morning to you. And that's a perfect point here. It's all about trust. Now, Nadine is somebody that I respect very highly, whose business is about having difficult conversations. And in terms of certainly from what I know about Nadine's business and her life, is about having difficult conversations is absolutely critical. If you abrogate responsibility and you think, oh, maybe another day it will come up, all that will happen is the problems will build up. They build up and they build up, and it's costly. It has a big economic impact on your business, but it also has an impact on morale, motivation, and everything else. So trust is the glue that holds your business together. If I didn't trust my own staff team, if I didn't trust the business partners that I've got, like Joe, if I didn't trust things to work, then I'm not going to have a business. I'll be just a basket case at the end of it. And lastly, systems. Get good systems to help you run your business, okay? And don't disobey them unless you've got absolutely really, really, really good reason for doing so. Right, folks, thank you very much for all your company this morning. I hope you got some value out of this. I do these broadcasts on a regular basis here. I might even be extending them more. So if there's anything you come across in the business environment that you want to find out more about, you'd like me to talk about, anything in the world of numbers or business, I'd be happy to hear from you. But for then, thank you very much for your company today. I've enjoyed doing this short broadcast. I hope you got some value out of this. And remember, trust, people have got to earn it, just don't give it to them willy-nilly. So have a great morning, and I'll see you guys very soon. Let's play you out with a nice little bit of theme.